these? You can have one of these. You want?
I'm old school today.
Huh? Thank you.
Old school.
Call the special board meeting
Join you.
and budget hearing to order. All members of the board are present. Ms. Blackinger, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be advised that in the event of a fire emergency, if an evacuation is necessary, an alarm will sound. Please note all marked emergency exits and evacuate well away from the building. At this time, we request that everyone turn their cell phones and other electronic devices to silent. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Dr. Littman, second. Dr. Singh. All in favor? Carried unanimously. In item number 3, recognition and board acknowledgments, I turn it over to you, Dr. Brownhall.
Thank you very much, President McCleary. So while it hasn't necessarily felt like spring over the last few days, inside the greenhouse at Williamsville North High School, seeds have been planted and flowers are slowly starting to bloom. Tonight's school spotlight highlights the greenhouse, life skills program, and the internship opportunities available for students. I'd like to welcome Principal Bob Coniglio to share more about this incredible opportunity. Principal Coniglio.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to share about information about our program, and also thank you for the constant support for our life skills program. So there's a children's book series called A Series of Unfortunate Events. What's happening in our greenhouse now is really a series of fortunate events. It came from our creative life skills teachers who came to me and said, you know, we want to look at our current resources. What do we have in the building that can give our students opportunities instead of going out in the community? So we brainstormed about how we could revamp our greenhouse, and it really took a total team effort. Not only the life skills teachers, our related service providers, but also our maintenance staff. You know, I want to give a special recognition to Steve Christich and George Klein, who went above and beyond as our maintenance mechanics, trying to find ways to make the greenhouse safe and efficient for all of our students. So what you're going to see is a group effort at North of how we make some incredible opportunities for our students. And again, thank you for all the support, and I hope you enjoy the video. Thanks.
Thank you, Principal Coniglio.
In transition services, we're always looking to find real, authentic work experiences for kids before they even leave high school. So we partnered with the science department just to grow a few seeds the first year, and now they've given us almost the entire greenhouse. Nothing beats it. The students really take so much pride in the different plants. Once it's time to sell the plants, the students really know what's involved in caring for them because they lived through it, so they can give the customers the do's and the don'ts.
I think over here, you think right there, is it wet though? Feel it, see if it's wet. Yeah, it's like damp.
When things go well, we have a beautiful flower or plant blooming. And when things don't work, then we come up with a new plan and we figure out what went wrong. So it's really that authentic learning that you just can't beat.
We like to see the process of a little seed growing into a big one and look so nice and stay healthy for a long time because we take care of them. It's really a pleasure to plan all this stuff.
Everybody wants to get their hands dirty. Everyone gets just so happy to do the work. It just changes them. They're smiling so much more. They're just so happy to work with the plants and to just, you can see every day, every week, everything just growing and blooming, and it's amazing.
We always hear the phrase, it takes a village, and this was truly a village coming together to create a great project. The support of everyone in the life skills program, our buildings and ground staff, which are extremely busy in the middle of a capital project, found time to prioritize fixing up some small things here, made sure it was working for the kids so it's safe in there for them. They're truly teaching these kids life skills. They're creating living things in there and then bringing them back to the community.
Yeah, we did it!
It's a pleasure. It's nice to just to sell and greeting people and to just get experience. So when we get out of high school, we don't become too stressed out and we feel comfortable just counting all the money and stuff.
The plant sale and our work in the greenhouse enables us to raise funds for our unified club and our unified sports. So all of the profits that we make from the plant sale go to different special activities for that organization. We also were really lucky to receive a few grants this year that really supported our efforts in the greenhouse. It means everything to feel the support from the different organizations in Williamsville, our administration at the district and building level, as well as the community, to know that what we do with students here matters.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Principal Caniglio. Great to see what's going on at Williamsville North High School. Thank you very much. Last month, during the Board of Education meeting, we were able to highlight FBLA and DECA and the impact these business programs have on our students. We also recognize the students who will be competing at the national competition for DECA. Well, tonight, we are proud to welcome back Jamie Pitnell, Director of Business, who will share with us the FBLA students who are now heading to the national competition. Welcome, Director Pitnell.
Thank you so much for having us and for recognizing our fantastic FBLA students. So last meeting you did see our wonderful video featuring both DECA and FBLA, and tonight our focus is on our FBLA students from East High School. The program itself focuses on leadership development, academic competitions, educational programs, and community service. So our students, actually that same week I was here last, were at national or at states. And now we are happy to say that 80 students were at states for FBLA and 45 of them are headed to nationals.
Whoa.
So tonight we recognize those 45 students heading to Atlanta, Georgia at the end of June.
Ooh.
At this time, I'd like to welcome up Michelle Finera-Morrow, who is the FBLA coordinator at East, and she will be reading all of their names for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. So first, I would like to say that I am back at East where I went to high school, and I was a member of FBLA.
Awesome.
So to be part of this club means a lot to me, and I can't be more proud of my students. And to the parents behind me that are here tonight, thank you for giving me the opportunity to teach your son and daughter because they are incredible. So without further ado, to my students behind me, when I call your name, please stand up if you're here. Congratulations, Vijal Samaseti, Sarat Islam, Alex Morrow, Shreya Gandham, Youngyu Hu, Amanda Ojeda, Kalyani Nair, Vidya Shah, Harshini Subaya, Nate Wan, Sophie Wang, Amber Wren, Merrick France, Surya Avasarala, Lucy Wang, Hassan Zara, Arush Chapiala, Eric Yang, David Kong, Eileen Wang, Monal Gupta, Gabby Kalana, Ayeza Shor, Talesi Suresh, Caitlin Lee, Ava Rosenthal, Mackenzie Ness, Marianne Abd Almaid, Carolyn Sue, Suche Gadhar, Nihita Jayakumar, Aaron Weiss, Grace Wang, Maha Vipuri, Maya Smith, Grace Lee, Soleil Zagoda, Sienna Zagoda, Laila Yonadi, Shalomika Sektivil, Eli Feldstein, Abhinav Senka, Rachel Shen, Matt Guglielmi, Jasmine Mansarov, and I believe that's it. Thank you.
Absolutely. So how are we going to do this picture, Nick? Let's go over
Yeah.
there. Okay.
Thank you again.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you very much.
I remember right. We don't pay for the students' trips to Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
We pay for the proctors that go. Their club does the. Yeah, I remember. I had to send students. I came from a poor school. But one year I shaved my beard off. Public to raise money.
I'll turn it back over to you, President McCleary.
I said raise more money if I fix my face. But I told them.
Thank you, Dr. Brown Hall. At this time, are there any board acknowledgements? Mr. Bulin?
Yes, I would like to acknowledge Williamsville North and really all of the Williamsville community. I was invited, as we all were, to the Unified Pep Rally last week at Williamsville North, and I just thought it was great. Principal Caniglio, I'm sorry, always kill your name. I thought it was just wonderful, and I thought the student body was wonderful, and I just thought the whole event was great, and I appreciate that you guys did that. I thought that was great. And by the way, they're undefeated and haven't lost
Wow.
2019 and will not lose this year.
Okay. All right.
Proud father talking, I'm sorry.
They're a good team.
I have
They have a very good team. Actually, two teams.
Ms. Poulin?
Yes, I wanted to acknowledge all of our jazz students who participated in the concert on Monday night before the Airmen of Note. I think they were on their game, and it was so good to see them being able to interact with each other and to display their talents in that format. So it was a good concert.
Awesome.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Ms. Blackinger first.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I got to see a sneak peek today of Mill Middle at their Fame musical. So I highly encourage those to come Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m.
Yes, thank you. Biscaglia.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge Maple West and the PTA at Maple West. I recently went and saw their art fest that they have every year. It was wonderful to see all the kids, running around and seeing their artwork and so proud, and parents taking pictures in front of it. That's what we're here for, to see the joy in children's faces. And I especially like that Maple West divides a little time out in the beginning for a sensory time for students that, can't be in big crowds and things like that. And I think that's important. And as we're moving forward, that's something we have to continue to think about. So,
Wasn't their theme Peanuts this year?
yeah. And then
It was.
ice cream social too, and book in the.
I was like, wow, it's really interactive. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Not Peanuts like it was Charles Schultz. The okay. I'm like,
Clarification.
okay, yeah.
Yes.
I knew what you meant, but
Thank-
yes.
I'm sorry.
On to item number 4. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda item number 5, special needs and student activities as presented? Poulin, second. Dr. Singh, any discussion? All in favor? Thank you, carried unanimously. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the April 18th regular board meeting? Mr. Bulin, second. Ms. Blackinger, any corrections? All right. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Under our president's report, I would like to remind everyone that we had a conversation with the Board of Education and Superintendent for faculty and staff yesterday, May 3rd, in the East High School Commons, and that the next school building visit will be on June 7th at Dodge Elementary and District Office. Board members attending are Ms. Blackinger, Ms. Poulin, Ms. Kazmariak-Bogner, and Dr. Littman. And at this time, I call on District Clerk Lynn Carey to share information regarding the annual vote.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Dr. McCleary. So if anyone didn't know, we have 14 board candidates running this year for 4 positions. And for information regarding the candidates, Nick Filipowski and his team, David, Lori, Amy, have done a lovely job getting this information out on our website. So thank you, Nick, David, Lori, and Amy for that. Also, after this meeting and budget hearing, the PTSA Council and League of Women Voters are facilitating the candidates night. So stick around for that. And that is on a separate stream. So it won't continue on this live stream. There is a separate stream for that. In regard to absentee ballots, if you're requesting an absentee ballot, you can call or email me. In the subject, please, if you email me, just type in application in the subject line. And then once that packet, I receive your inquiry, the packet with which will include the application, I'll mail it out, or you can pick it up at district office, just coordinate that with me. And then you would return the completed packet to me, which there's several options to do that. The application and ballot can be returned in the mail. So mail it back. There is postage paid envelope and a locked drop box located outside of the entryway door number 14 at district office. And you may return it to district office during regular business office hours as well. And then I must receive this by 5 o'clock on May 16th. And then on vote day, which is May 16th, please come out to vote. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. at North High School Gymnasium. The vote is staffed by Erie County Board of Elections, poll inspectors, and district office employees. And it's a pretty smooth process. It has been quite efficient in the last couple of years. We are planning on tallying up the votes after the polls close, and candidates and community members are welcome to attend at that time. Hopefully it won't take too long. And then the candidate who is the 4th highest vote recipient will take the oath of office that evening and will begin that term effective the next day, May 17th until June 30th of 2025. And should that person be a current board member, they would have to resign from that term, which ends July 1st, and that seat would be vacant until July 1st. Makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Any questions from anyone?
Yeah,
Dr. Littman.
I have a
Yes.
question. And it relates to something came up last meeting when one of the speakers talked about an incident we had last year. Knowing that this year there's going to be 14 candidates, not 6 or 7, this thing's going to be more crowded and more congested. There might be some hostilities. I don't know.
hope not.
But are we doing anything to
hostilities?
I've seen hostilities when I was running, and I won't get into that.
Okay.
But that's the old
Yeah.
tax days 15 years ago.
There you
know,
go.
like,
There you go.
Yeah. But no, I just want to make sure that, you know, we have, if we're having more people,
Coverage,
it's going to be
yeah.
more crowded, that, you know, we plan that for the safety.
I have
of
sorted that
all.
out,
Absolutely.
Dr. Littman, with our security officers and our group that we deal with for the votes who staff our vote.
Yeah. Just,
Plenty to go around. We'll have plenty
yeah.
of.
We just want to make sure
yeah.
that people who say, oh, I'm not really comfortable, that everything will be fine. If not, me and Tom
Yeah.
will be out there.
I have it covered, Dr. Littman.
Yeah, I said it's not.
I'll
Tom
be
and I
sure.
will be out there taking care of things like no.
I don't know.
We're ready.
Can I ask one favor?
We'll be
when board
ready.
members speak, if we could pull our microphones closer and talk into the microphone so everyone can hear. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's it for now.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Littman, anyone else? We'll make sure we're have plenty of security on that day. Thank you, everyone.
You, Lynn.
Thank you, Mrs. Carey, and thank you for all the work that you've been doing in this whole process.
Always, always.
We are now up to item 8. And I will turn it over to Dr. Brown Hall and Mr. Matursky to give us a review of the 2023-2024 budget.
Thank you very much, President McCleary. I'm going to ask Tom Matursky, our CFO, our Assistant Superintendent of Finance, to take it away with the budget presentation.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Brown Hall. So at this time, I'd like to certainly welcome everybody and those of you who may be watching this live stream. We are going to go over the 23-24 proposed budget. So first information here is what we have been reviewing really for the past several months. It involves our expenditure side of the budget. The process that we have used is that we concentrate, of course, on the 23-24 budget, which is on the left side. And we're always looking at a long-range plan. And in this case, we're looking at the next year just so that our Board of Education and our community has an idea what these expenses may look like in the future. So the majority of these expenses are related to our staff. They are salary increases, as you can see. That's a large number of 4.5 million. That also would result, higher increases mean that our district's responsible to make higher Social Security FICA tax payments. So that's up 475,000. The retirement systems, both the teacher retirement and the employer retirement, that number is calculated based upon the information we receive from New York State on the rates. So that's up 600,000. And then we have our health insurance, $4.1 million. I'm going to go into that a little more detail. I'm just going to go through the list first and come back to that one. So BOCES is our Board of Cooperative Education, and those are for services that may directly impact students as well as areas of administrative type services that we require, everything from technology up through safety. And the important thing to state about BOCES services is that we receive for the majority of those about 60% back on state aid. So although that number is $700,000 increase, we're getting money back from the state in the following year's budget based on our actual expenditures. So I wanted to call that out here for our community. Bus transportation is up $1.5 million for next year. And again, this is an area that has experienced high increases due to what we're all really receiving when it comes to driver shortages and the like. We do have a request for proposal that is currently out. We have one more year left on our current contract with our contractor. However, the year after, the next 5 years will be decided by this request for proposal. So those actually submittals are due next week. So we'll have a better understanding at the July meeting where we stand for future. And then cybersecurity is something that we have done a lot of work on this year, a lot of concentration. We had added $250,000 to that, and then utilities $150,000. Now, just to go back on the health insurance line, that is up substantially, as you can see, $145,342, and our district is self-funded. What that means is we're paying the actual expenses. It's important to state that New York State does not allow school districts to have a reserve for that. So that means we really need to be able to budget for expenses based upon what we're incurring. And the last 2 years has seen a significant increase following COVID on what we've been paying. That's why if you look at that next column on the 24-25, you see that number substantially less. So again, that's a good indication of what we'll be looking at in the following year, where we're assuming that we'll come back more to an inflationary number rather than this 1 year number that we have to make up to address what we're actually experiencing. So with that, going back to that 23-24 budget, we have total required expense increases of $12,320,397, a working budget that was $224,848,483, or 5.80%.
Tom, sorry, just one question for the health insurance. Since you're self-funded, what if we have expenses more than what we budgeted for? Does it come from a reserve?
We do not have a reserve. We would have to use fund balance basically to pay that. We do not have reserves, so that would have to come from fund balance.
And if it is less than 4.1 million, it would go back to the fund balance?
If it's less than 4.1 million, then at the end of the year, whatever our actual revenue and actual expenses are, that creates the fund balance for the district in that year.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end of that year, per accounting policy and requirements, we close all those expenses out and we put it into either a fund balance, appropriated fund balance amount, or it goes into a reserve. One of those two areas is what we would do with it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So moving on, another important part of our budget process is always looking for reductions. And so this particular year, we had a teacher contract settlement. And what that really has allowed our district to do is we have retirement savings equal to $1,460,480. Now, this is net of a 15% retirement incentive. So this helps us on our budget when we move forward to see what our totals are. And you can see that when that's reduced, reduces our initial increases on the expenditure side, we have a program total cost increase of $10,859,917. And that brings us to a proposed budget of $223,388,003, which is a 5.11% increase. So that is one side of the budget. The other side of the budget is revolving around our revenue. And an important item that really drives our a big piece of our revenue is going to be the tax cap calculation. So I'm going to just point out some of the major features here. The growth factor that you see in here and the CPI increase of 2.0%, those are numbers provided to us by New York State. So that is what we have to follow. And then the formula itself, again, is provided to us by New York State. So going down to what the maximum increase is, if you follow it down, you'll see that we could have an increase of $4,598,636. That would be a 3.35% increase on the tax levy. However, we have recommended and included in the proposed budget an increase of $2,745,000 or 2%. So that is down significantly, and it really is going to be shared, what I'll share with you here on our total revenue page, why it's down. So you can see that the major piece here is our state aid increase is about $9.2 million. And of that, $8.3 million is from foundation aid. So that large increase is really due to the fact that this is the last year the state had put in their process to make all school districts 100% whole on their foundation aid formula. Our district did not benefit in past years from increases that other districts may have received. That is the reason why we're getting a significantly large increase this year. It's likely a one-time expense or budget increase on the revenue side. Other changes here that are significant, I just want to go down to the sales tax. That's $1.6 million increase. So that's a definite increase that's helping us in the budget for this coming year. And I also want to point out that although I'm not going to go over the detail, you'll see that there are changes in almost all the other revenue codes. And that's due to the fact that every year we review the codes, we look at what happened in the prior year, what the history is, and we look forward to what the history might be or the next year may entail for these revenue codes. So with that said, I also want to share that with that large increase in state aid, we were able to reduce the appropriated fund balance by $1,250,000 and the other, a couple of these reserves by approximately another $1.2 million. So you'll see that total reserves for appropriations as well as the reserve appropriations were decreased by $2,430,000 in this proposed budget. So this results in a balanced budget. You can see again that the tax levy increase is at the $2,745,000. And again, the percentages at the bottom reflect the budget increase of 5.11% and the tax levy increase of 2.00%. So just showing the balanced budget here, you can see that we've considered, as I mentioned, reductions due to staff retirements. Again, we had the availability to go to a tax cap amount of almost $4.6 million, which was 3.35%. However, this budget is well less than that at 2% or $2,745,000, which is $1,853,636 under the tax cap amount. So what does this mean for a house that would be assessed at $250,000? It would result in an estimated tax rate for Amherst residents of $18.82. That's 37 cents or 2% increase. And I do want to make a very important point. This is based on 2022 equalization rates and assessed values. It also is based, the numbers below are based on the STAR exemption report from 2022. We as a district do not receive the new assessed value information nor the equalization rate information until the month of July. So rather than trying to estimate that, we use the actual numbers that we know were used in the prior year. So looking at the example here, based upon where you are in the STAR program, if you have a tax credit, which means you're getting it back on your income tax, your initial increase is $92.29. If you have a basic STAR program, you're at $82.27. And if it's enhanced STAR, it's $69.83. So the next piece is just a quick review of our foundation aid. And so with an increase here, you can see a 23.45%. The state is requiring all school districts that have an increase over 10% to share with our communities what our plan is. So we've been doing that over the last few months. You can see that we have had input through our website, through email, and that input period has now closed. However, we will be sharing the information with everybody in June. So just moving forward to some of the items, I'm not going to go over every item here, but I wanted to share number one, that all of these are student-centered. They're either providing support services for students or for wellness or mental health type areas. The other thing I do want to point out is all of these dollars are within our budget. They're not extra dollars. They support our total budget. So as you can see, again, I'll go over a few of these. Math specialists at the elementary and middle schools to provide remediation and intervention, literacy supports, materials, summer resources for ENL. Again, school counselors at the elementary and middle schools, a continuation of our certified behavior analyst, student wellness activities, reading specialists at the elementary, middle, and high schools. And we'll go forward to having additional instructional support here during the summer for middle schools, and teaching assistants to provide individuals and small group supports for ELA reading and math. So again, this is our foundation aid plan, and that is what we are going to be doing in the upcoming school year 23-24. So at this time, this is certainly the vote information again that Mrs. Carey also presented. I want to move forward to another informational item. We wanted to address some of the information that was provided in the New York State Comptroller's report. So what I will do is I'm going to go over this and certainly answer any questions at the conclusion. So the first item I wanted to do is to go over and explain the information in the large numbers that were provided. And so I'm starting with the $47 million number, which the comptroller has said the district overestimated appropriations. So the best way for me to start this is to go back and show everybody how they calculated the number, what it means. And so to start with that, what it means is it's taking the expense budget and it's subtracting actual expenses from it. The numbers go across the top. You can see what the comptroller, how the comptroller got the number. It comes to 46.6 million and they round it to 47. So there's where the 47 comes from. However, the comptroller did not include expenses that are budgeted in our general fund and expended in there. It's the interfund expenses, which is for our debt service payments and for our federal program. And the federal program is related to our summer special ed program, where school districts are required to contribute 20% toward that program. So they did not include those dollars. It is in our budget, and so I'm including it there because it's a relevant expense. When you look at those dollars, it does reduce their $46.6 million number to $28.6 million. So with that, I also wanted to go over some of the facts that surround these items. So again, as I mentioned, this is budget expenses minus actual expenses. But the reality is that this type of calculation does not impact our fund balance. Fund balance is determined by actual revenues minus actual expenses. And you'll see at the conclusion of this, I have that information out there too. So with that said, they excluded the interfund transfers, and they are required by law, as I stated here, to be budgeted in the general fund. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that the unspent dollars really are not part of the next year's budget. If you don't spend the dollars, you save the community dollars. So it's not as though these dollars are lost or they're something happens to them. If they're not spent, we're saved. And the point that I want to also share here is, and we did share this with the comptroller, is really 3 of these years were relevant to COVID-19. If you all remember in 2019-20, I believe it was March 19th, Governor Cuomo at the time said to us, you're not going to be returning to school for the rest of the year. What we did at that point in time, because the governor had also said that you may be experiencing, and you being school districts, a 20% reduction in your state aid in the following year. We froze all expenses. We did that because we wanted to prepare ourselves financially for the next year. So that is one reason why we had no transportation expenses. We had salary expenses were still paid, but we did not have other expenses. We turned down the heat in our buildings to 55 degrees because there was no one in our buildings. So we did everything possible to save money. And it shows. That $15.8 million was the budget less the actual expenses. So in addition to that, the following year, where you have a net amount there of 8.4, again, we started to receive federal grants, federal grant funding. And so when you're paying for expenses that are operating and using grant funds, you're not going to be expending taxpayer dollars. So again, we were saving taxpayer dollars from our community and using the grant funds because they were available. So with that said, I wanted to reiterate the takeaway point at the bottom. And that is, the district does not expend district budgets unless a necessary expense. And we look to obtain value from every dollar. And this is what we do all the time. This is why the board sees all the bids that we do at every board meeting. We are always looking to maximize the dollars that we have in our budget. So the next slide is to kind of review a personal finance example that reflects what the comptroller just shared with this $47 million. So what I have done here is prepared a monthly expense budget, and I have shared a few simple areas that we all can relate to. A budget of $7,000, a mortgage that you're budgeting for $4,000, auto for $1,250, food, $1,000, and utilities for $750. Keep in mind that why would you budget these numbers? Well, if you have a mortgage, maybe it's a variable rate. We all know what's been happening with interest rates lately. They've been going up, so that means your mortgage amounts are going up. Similarly to us, when we do our regular budget, we have to budget for things that happen during the school year that we have no indication will happen when we're doing the budget. So if you look through this example, and I'm not going to go through every item on it, but if you follow the total expenses at the bottom, you'll see that they are less in every month in this example than the $7,000 that was in your budget. So in the end, The difference, total difference, summation is $2,090. So again, if this is related to the comptroller 47 million, and again, that's 4 years, they would say that you were $2,090 over appropriated your expense budget. So the question is, what relevance does that have? And the relevance is not really any. And the reason it has no real relevance is because it's not based upon budget. It's based upon what's your actual revenues versus your actual expenses, which you're going to see shortly. So the next item that I want to address is this appropriated fund balance. And they say that you appropriated $22 million over the course of 4 years. You can see that's an accurate number. It's in our revenue budget. So the point here is that if we appropriate budgets, this appropriated fund balance, and it's not used, we still have the money. It never went anywhere. The fact is, it's not, though, a summation, and you'll see in the next example how that works out. But it's every year is independent from the other year. So we still have $5.5 million. It's in our accounts. It's in our savings account. We've been investing it to make more money off that money every chance we can get. But we never really had $22 million, if you're looking at it that way, because they're summing it up. So with that, I want to show this example, and I think this more clearly will allow people to understand why I made that statement. So again, I put that example of what they did, the 22 million across the top. And in this situation, what I'm saying is you have a revenue budget now for your personal finance. And your revenue budget is composed of 2 items. The revenue that you're getting from your salary, from your job, $6,750. And then you're going to appropriate $250 from your savings account. So that's your budget of $7,000. Again, I'm not going to go over all the lines here, but I'm going to go to the bottom one. The bottom line is actual savings appropriated and remaining in your bank account. So again, if you look at the first 2 months, you're seeing that you did not need to use your savings account. So it's still at $250. You look at the third and the fourth month, you use $50 and you use $25. So you go across and you use $75 of the $250. $875 summation would be what the comptroller is saying you over appropriated. Now that's not an incorrect statement, but the reality is, how much do you have in your savings account? Do you have $875? You do not. What you have left is what you, after you appropriated and used, is $175. So again, the comptroller report stating that there's 22 million gives the impression that we have $22 million left, when in fact, going back to what I just said, we have 5.5. We've always had 5.5. It's there, and we've invested it. We continue to invest and make money off it, but it is not the 22 million. And that's also because every year when we do the budget process, accounting policy and procedures require us to close out the year, and any of those dollars go back into our fund balance and into our reserves. That's required by law. And the comptroller had said that we have basically established all of our reserves legally and that we have them reasonably funded. So the next item I want to discuss is another number that they reflect in their audit. $38 million. So this number here, I want to start by pointing out that the top number, fund balance of 22 million, that's the same number that they referred here that they were stating separately. So they took that number and they basically have added the reserve appropriations to come up with a $38 million number. So again, it's a similar conversation to what I just shared on the personal finance. It's there. If we have not used it, we still have them in our account, and it's just as though we're using our savings accounts. So again, that's very important. If we don't use it, the money's there. It's still in our accounts, and that it's similar to this $38 million is, again, similar to the example of what they said, well, you have $875 that was over appropriated. And the answer is, it's really what's in your savings account. So the last piece I want to talk about is $40 million. And of this is where you do generate fund balance. And it is your final revenue minus your final expenses, excluding transfers. So again, the comptroller did not include the interfund transfers for debt service in the special education federal program. So if you take those dollars and you net them out, you go from having this $40 million surplus, which is the summation, to 25.5. The point I want to make here is that when you look at that, the adjusted surpluses, the way I've showed them, which are all from our audits, by the way, you have a percentage to final revenue of 1% in 1819, 8% in 1920, 0 in 2021, and 4% in 21-22. I want to point out a couple important factors here. I've already mentioned the issues with COVID-19, and they really are reflective in 3 of these 4 years that were represented in the audit. The other thing I want to point to is that 2021 year, you see the 6.4 million. That was part of what I mentioned, that we were trying to do savings and we brought dollars over. We were buying computers, we were buying Chromebooks. That was used to help us in a very difficult COVID-19 situation. So again, the point here is that surplus amounts are closed out every year. They don't continue, so they're built up in our savings. We use them. Capital projects is a great example of that. If we have any dollars, we use them for funding our capital reserve, and those items reduce the interest payments we would have had to pay for our community, as well as making sure that the debt payments for capital reserve or for capital projects in the future are not increasing. So the summary here is that I wanted to show the facts of how the comptroller calculated their numbers. You saw how they were done. The statistical calculations that they made can state numbers in a manner to prove any point. And so the question is, do the comptroller's numbers represent what's in our accounts? And I've shown that they do not. I've told you and explained what we have in our account and that these dollars are still there. So again, fund balance and reserve appropriations would be like using your savings account for unanticipated expenses. And I would go back and reference every December as we start the budget development process, a long-range plan is prepared. That long-range plan goes into detail about how the district uses fund balance and reserves in our budget process. So again, if you would like to learn more about that, that is posted online. So lastly, just to kind of summarize here, the 9.7 million continues to be in our accounts. The 22 million calculation is not additional funds expended or saved. We have the original dollars. Nothing has been lost. They are still here with us in our district.
Thank you very much, Mr. Machersky. Now we will, I'm sorry, Dr. McClary.
I don't see if the board has any questions.
I'm sorry.
Dr. Singh. And then
I just wanted to thank you for putting these numbers together, because now it makes more sense than looking at the letters from the comptroller's office. My only, just not a question, more like a clarification. So the $28.6 million, which was a difference, is actually not 28.6, but it was closer to the 5.5 million fund balance we had at the end of last year.
Mm-hmm.
And the $9.7 million which you have in our bank balance includes the $5.5 million.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
any other board members? Ms. Fleckinger?
So then you respond back to the New York State Comptroller to their audit with your responses.
We are done with the comptroller. The comptroller's process is the follows. They do the audit. They meet with us. We provide a written response, which we did, and their audit was 8 pages. Our response was 8 pages. We shared a lot of the same information with them. They then issue the audit, and then they comment on our responses, and we do not get a comment back. The next time we do have to do a corrective action plan, which the board approved at our last meeting. That's been submitted to them and submitted to New York State Education Department. That's all required by law. The next time we will likely hear from them will be in 5 years.
So they respond to your responses.
No, they do not. Well, in the audit, what was in that final audit that was released, they had notes to our responses.
So no apology to the community for getting everyone upset.
That's not their role.
Not their role.
Yeah, that's.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fleckinger. Dr.
We're just
Stegman.
just to build on that, I guess the point is for the community, the money is documented, all the money is accounted for, and that's what the community needs to know.
And just as a side note, if anybody in the community has any questions, I am available. My number is 716-626-8012. You call me.
If you have extra money, send it.
That's an important point that Dr. Littman just brought up. Absolutely, it is documented.
People that haven't had a chance to ask a question on this side, anyone?
So in terms of a state comptroller, they come in every about 5 years and they do their audit. And so what I'm understanding is they look at what you're basically spending out and what was taken in as revenue in the same budget. So almost like taking your checking account and savings account and combining them and saying, well, that's why you have so much extra money.
Yeah, they are looking at it, and that's why I wanted to show what their numbers are, their calculations, how they got to their number, and they use it in different formats, and their calculations are correct. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just a perspective.
And that's why we have our separate audits every year in our audit committee to make sure that we're following that. And as Dr. Littman said, making sure those funds are there that we can see.
Correct. And going back to our auditors, and they work for you, the board.
Yeah.
They report to you every October. And the points that they will make is that you have a very stable financial position and that you have adequate reserves and adequate fund balance, and that the fund balance amounts are always within the legal limit of 4%.
Thank you. Anyone else on this side?
Detailed explanation.
Go back to Dr. Singh.
I just had a comment. I just wanted to thank Tom and his team because the money that they saved, like turning off lights, and again, the money they saved during the Capital Music Project, I'm sure they're doing a great job. Accounting for every penny of community's money.
Thank you.
Thank you, board members. At this time, the board welcomes anyone in attendance who wishes to speak about the budget to come to the podium at this time and start by stating your name. It was not necessary to sign up in advance, but we will begin with those who did. And a reminder that all questions and comments must be in reference to the budget. So we'll begin with.
Our first person is Carolyn Grzinski.
It's an interpretation. This interpretation of number.
Hi, just for clarification purpose, is this subject to the 3-minute limitation normally given to public comment?
No.
No. Okay. Then I will not talk as fast as I try to usually then. My name is Carolyn Gorzinski. My son is a 7th grade student at Heim Middle. He's integrated in 7th grade classes and receives special education teacher support throughout the day. It's a very unique program that's provided to him because of my relentless advocacy for him and the amazing staff and administration at Heim Middle who created a unique program for my son. He's doing very well. Since the time my son was in 1st grade, I have repeatedly spoken in public comment at board meetings and actively met with district administration about my and other parents' concerns regarding the district's commitment to creating and funding a continuum of special education programming for students with disabilities in the district. I am here once again because once again, mine and other parents' concerns seem to be falling on deaf ears. Our concerns are many, but tonight I and my parent friends that are here with me are focused on the district's needs to provide an appropriate continuum of special education programming at the middle and particularly high school level. Despite Williamsville being one of the largest districts in Western New York, I believe the only district larger is the Buffalo City Schools. This district does not offer academic special class placements through middle and high school grade levels. It's shocking. This is what I do for a living. I cannot believe that does not exist in this district this large. Make no mistake, there is a cohort of students who need this programming that go or underserved, or worse, they are put on buses and sent out of the Williamsville schools. I desperately want my son to attend Williamsville North High School and to remain friends with the children he has made friends in his integrated classrooms. But unfortunately, I know that in the current state that it's in, North does not have the programming or staff to appropriately meet my son's needs. Also, despite there being at least 2 well-populated, alternatively assessed autism classes at high middle, there is no autism-based programming past grade 8 in this school district. Although my son does not fall within this continuum of programming needs, many of my friends' children do, and they're here. They have repeatedly approached the district administration about their concern of lack of further planning and programming and funding for their children, to no avail. The budget documents tout that all current programs have been maintained under the current budget. I submit this is not enough. The district needs to plan for, budget for, develop and implement a continuum of academic and alternatively assessed special class placements at the middle and high school level. I hope in the future, as a district, we can do better. Anybody who wants to speak to me, I have written to the board multiple times. I'm here. Call me. I'll meet with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Miss Tracy Peterson.
Hello, I'm Tracy Peterson. I did not write anything up very nice. I'm kind of jumping in here. The one thing that I did want to bring up, just in the research that we were looking into, is the spending of foundation aid. And we can't find anything where the foundation aid increase will be spent on special education. The actual slides show plans to include math specialists, literary support materials, summer resources for ENL, as well as the school counselors, middle school, and a continuation of a certified behavioral analyst for $240,000. I'm going to focus on that because I don't know of or ever heard of there being a certified behavioral specialist in the entire district. We've asked for it. We've talked about it. We talked to the administration at length in the special ed department. We get zero response other than vague, ambiguous responses that give us zero information. So I'm kind of curious as to where is this continuation and where is the money and where was this person? So that's what I want to ask. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I just say one thing about that? And I actually want to apologize if you haven't received responses that are, fitting for the inquiries that you or any special ed parent has submitted. And so we will do better in the future. And that is my guarantee and promise.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Next, I'm sorry, I forgot I have the list, right? Doreen Major.
Hi,
Hi, Doreen.
Doreen Major. My son Max Major is in Heim at the 811 program. And a lot of you know me and have seen me many times already. And my biggest question and my hope for focus, especially with this budget, is that the money that we see allocated, the foundation aid, things like that, that there's a portion we'd love to see with regards to special needs, where exactly it is going, especially when it comes to behavioral supports. There is something in the budget about continuing of a BCBA or CBA rather, $240,000. I don't know if that's in addition to, or if that is 240 straight. I don't know where there's a BA. Is it at a
Yeah,
specific?
we have contracted with one, and that's why it's in the budget, because that would be a continuation. So we have up to that dollar amount to continue those services at several of our schools. So we will be continuing that in the future. And I want to go back because Carolyn, if I may also, because I want to make sure everyone realizes, and I know there's a heavy emphasis on special ed and what the district has not done. And this is why we want to make sure we're focusing on what the district can do in the future, right? So that's why we're forming special committees to make sure that when we get our recommendations back and our best practices and how we align to that, we can develop a plan based on that. Because to Ms. Grzinski's point, having that continuum of services, that's what we're really digging into also to see what that looks like, right?
Mhm.
And so I just wanted to say that before we hop on to you, Ms. Major. So I'm sorry for that.
No, that's okay. Our big thing is the behavior supports in two realms. One being certified behavior techs for the 811 classrooms, and as well as a continuation of a behavioral support in the high school. We have been made aware that there are 3 children that are in homebound instruction right now. And just recently you sent out the code of conduct, and I went through and read it. And rule number 1 is that every child has their right. Number 1 right is to a free public education in the least restrictive environment. And these children were kicked out for having a disability. And in the DEI, there's a lot of discussion with regards to, I forget what the name of it is, instead of internal suspension, and it's a different discipline. Restorative. Okay. So in that, there's an actual description on like exactly what restorative is and how we discipline children that have the wherewithal to not make bad decisions. But yet we're disciplining children that don't have the wherewithal, that have an actual disability that creates that behavior. So we just really want to focus on behavioral support in both the middle school and the high school level. And we really need that to happen like this year.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Angelica Martino.
Hi. Gosh. My name's Angelica Martino, and I just want a clarification, pawning off of my other parent friends about the $240,000 of the foundation aid for the continuation of a certified behavior analyst. And I also have a couple questions, but you did answer the one. So continuation did mean that it's just going off of past practice. So we're just going to be contracting out for a BCBA, correct?
Right now, yes, we are.
Okay. So I'm glad to see that the funding is being dedicated to not just a behavior analyst or just a behavior tech, but a certified one. My concern is that this funding and service has been in place, yet my son Carter, who is the perfect candidate for a BCBA, has never received their services. This year alone, we've had numerous CSE meetings, all with the primary concern of behaviors, yet services from a BCBA have never been offered. And I and many other parents I've spoken to can't help but wonder, who is this $240,000 actually servicing? 3 weeks after a CSE committee denied my son additional services in a gen ed setting, an out-of-district 611 placement was being recommended due to his behaviors. The district skipped over the entire continuum of the special education because in a matter of 3 weeks, I was told they didn't have anything appropriate for Carter. But then I see this at the March meeting of $240,000 for a BCBA, and I thought, well, that could have been appropriate months ago. So I sometimes wonder, would we be in this position? Would Carter be in this position if the district actually utilized the service that it was budgeted for. But like you said, Dr. Brown Hall, I try not to live in the past, and I try to think, what are we going to do in the future to improve the system? So my question is, why is the $240,000 being used to contract a BCBA and not for hiring one specifically for our district? Numerous surrounding districts have their own in-district BCBA, and it's proven to be a more effective way to service staff and students. The average salary for a BCBA is a little under $100,000, a fraction of that $240,000. So not only can we have a BCA, but then we can also budget for behavior techs to work with the BCA in the classrooms, in the 811 that Doreen's talking about. For that fractional cost, an in-district BCA also allows for more flexibility. They have no schedule limitations that are involved with consulting services. There's no choosing which students are worthy of an agency consultation. It would be available to all district students. It provides continuity of care. They can provide services across multiple years. They know the student's history, what works, what doesn't, so there's no getting to know you transition in a new school year. Come September, they can support both the student and the teacher to ensure success, something our IEPs do. The continuity of care also allows for relationships to build between the students, staff, and families. Students do better when everyone's collaborative and trusting of each other. This allows also for a deeper understanding of the district's policies and procedures. Consulting services deal with multiple districts and multiple policies. Knowing our Williamsville policies, the services available in our district, our MTSS process ensures that recommendations made are feasible and can also be carried out without additional barriers. Peer education. Now there's no need to pay extra for somebody to come in on a staff development day to provide development training on behavior support. And going back to convenience, they can drop into classrooms to teach and model those recommendations in live time when behaviors are actually occurring. Inclusion, going off our DEI, students with disabilities and behavioral challenges are more likely to be included with their peers when they have proper supports because their behaviors are properly managed and minimized. When there is inclusion, there's less likely for a need of out-of-district placement. Behaviors are oftentimes a manifestation of a disability and almost always a mode of communication of an unmet need. Ironically, Carter was verbalizing his needs this entire school year. I need help. This is too hard. I can't do this, etc. He's currently on home instruction, and on his last day of attendance, he had one more administrative referral to add to his laundry list. It was for disrespectful and inappropriate behavior. He raised his voice at a teacher and said, and I quote directly from what the teacher wrote in the referral, "I hate this crap. I hate this place. This is hell. This is torture." And wait for it, quote, "No one helps me in this place," end quote. You have parents like me that will not go away because you literally have kids crying out for help in your schools, Dr. Brown Hall. Even without proper support, I don't condone his language, his behavior that warranted for this referral. However, I couldn't agree more with his last statement. It wasn't for lack of effort from the staff, but I believe a lack of knowledge and training on the proper ways to respond to his behaviors. Knowledge that a BCBA would provide. We don't need to wait for the special ed audit to see that this specifically needs to change. This change needs to change not just for Carter and the other parents who voiced their concerns, but for the many students who are only capable of verbalizing their needs through their behaviors. A BCBA is essentially their translator in a foreign country. From my vantage point, allocating $240,000 to go toward contracting a BCBA rather than hiring one with a team of behavior techs is financially irresponsible to the stakeholders of our district and has proven to be a disservice to our students. So why are we still budgeting for contracted out service and not a new position? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Angelica, I will answer that because the difficult part is right now when you're in the middle of a review, if you begin to hire outside of the recommendations that will come to you, you may actually be either duplicative of services or provide services or do hiring that's not necessary. So that's why we budgeted for this amount. We'll still continue to contract until we get the recommendations, because if that's something we tend to do or we want to do, we already have that money budgeted and we can move forward in that way. It would not be responsible right now for us to try to piecemeal or hodgepodge something together until we get the full service recommendations from the review, just so that we can make sure that we have a plan of action and that we're going through all of those, not thinking myopically or looking at single situations, but as a district as a whole is what we have to do.
Okay, I appreciate that. However, I do think it is a disservice and irresponsible to just disregarding the issues at hand and waiting for somebody to say, oh, this is actually an issue.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I understand your opinion, and because you're in that situation, I do completely understand what you're saying. So thank you very much for that. The last person we have on the list is Shannon Plojak.
Hello. I'm here to ask for funding for BOCES programming that I feel will be best suited for my 8th grade son. I feel these programs could also be beneficial for so many other students who are struggling to thrive. My son is just finishing up his 8th grade year. He's such a gifted kid with exceptional insights and interest in life. When he was younger, he would watch shows like How It's Made and with such fascination, always interested in how things are put together and how they work. He's a born technical kid. Over the years, he's become quite the musician. Recently, School of Rock asked him to play in their house band. I've seen this kid quickly conquer the most complex material and produce profound insights on the world. He was asked to join the adult class at the coding school that he goes to because of his proficiency and enthusiasm. Because the environment was the right fit for him, his confidence was sky high and he soared to the top of his classes. However, when it comes to traditional school programs, he hasn't been as successful. Last year in 7th grade, it was decided by his counselors and team at Mill that due to his alternative learning style, he would do well at Middle Tech Academy for his 8th grade year. Unfortunately, shortly before the school year began, we found out that Middle Tech wasn't opening their doors at all that school year, and he wasn't able to attend the program recommended for him, and his education suffered. Instead, he was relegated to attend a traditional setting for his 8th grade year. This experience compounded the issues we saw in the previous year. Even with academic support and in-school counseling sessions, his grades suffered, failing multiple classes, but more importantly, his self-esteem and self-worth suffered, taking him to a low place. This bright, vibrant boy turned inward as his view of himself deteriorated greatly due to his experiences at school. My brilliant son, who draws such beautiful artwork and plays such beautiful music, now thinks he's stupid and often wonders why everyone else thrives in a school, but he doesn't. Why is it so hard for me? He often asks. It's awful to watch a child change so drastically like this. I'm sure you'll agree these are critical and formative years for our children. Being forced into situations that negatively impact learning and views of self will have lifelong consequences. Currently, due to the limited programs available in the Williamsville School District, many children, just like mine, are facing this exact issue. It's imperative for children to have access to these alternative programs with hands-on learning to provide education they can retain and the self-esteem needed to thrive in this world. It's imperative that we fund programs like this for all of our alternative learners. I'm asking you, the board, to approve funding for my son's education for a BOCES program for this upcoming school year. It's been done before, and I'm asking for a repeat circumstance. Thank you for your compassion and your consideration.
Thank you very much. You want to see if there's any audience members? So at this time, if there's anyone that did not sign up prior that would like to speak about the budget, you may do so at this time. When you come to the podium, please state your name.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Lynn Dominiak. I've lived in the village for 40 plus years. I've never been to a board meeting at all. But what caught my eye this time was the thing in the B about the $47 million discrepancy or, budget versus expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard your explanation saying it's a budget versus actual expenses. So my question is, if for ease of purposes, if your budget was 100 million and you actually your expenses came in at 80, okay, so you saved 20 million. So the following year, is your budget for the following year like your baseline starting at 100 million again? Or is there some kind of recognition of the fact that our actual expenses are always lower than what we budgeted for, and therefore, as a homeowner, can our taxes be reduced? So it's just a basic general question.
That's a very good question. I'm glad you asked that. So what happens every year, and this really is what I do prior to the budget process really beginning, I examine just what you said, all of the actual expenses. What we wind up doing is transferring areas that we had those surpluses in to fund other areas of the budget that are either increasing, whether it's new programs or whether it's items that were under or over budget. So those dollars go in and we transfer them. So that usually results in several $1 million of transfers that never result in an increase that goes on to that page that you saw at the beginning. So that is done every year. We review it and we make sure that we're trying to minimize the tax increase to our community.
Okay. Or have a tax decrease. Possibly.
Yes, and
I know that doesn't happen anymore. But
It's difficult, but this is a good year where in reality we have an increase, of course, of 2.7, but what I showed and I didn't really refer to at this session was the inflation rate was 6.5% via New York State. And yet our increase is 2%. And we all have seen that on everything that we buy at the grocery store and at the gas pump and everywhere else. So we have really reduced that increase substantially, even below that. So our 2%, I mean, that's 4.5% we're absorbing in our budget this year, if you want to look at it that way, from what it should have been.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other community members? I'll turn it back to you, Dr. McCleary.
Thank you. Tonight is the candidates' night. The annual budget vote and board member election is May 16th at North High School in the gymnasium from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And the next regular board meeting is May 23rd. Is there a motion to adjourn the special board meeting and budget hearing? Ms. Poulin, second. Ms. Kazmarek-Bogner. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Motion adjourned. Meeting adjourned. At this point, I believe we're having